Welcome to Stay Sharp in Digital Engineering, your insider's edge on all things digital in the world of engineering, products, and manufacturing. In this episode of Stay Sharp, Jonathan Scott and I dive into the complexities of the digital thread with Rob McAveney, the Chief Technology Officer at Aras. We discuss how every company's digital thread is unique, why adaptability is crucial in PLM systems, and how AI is shaping the future of connected data. From defining key concepts to understanding the differences between strong and weak data links, this conversation unpacks the evolving role of a digital thread in modern manufacturing and engineering. Welcome to Stay Sharp, everyone, the podcast about all things digital related to products, from engineering to manufacturing, service, and beyond. We're glad to have you here with us. I'm one of your hosts, Julianne Grant, and I'm joined today by my co-host and partner in crime, Jonathan Scott.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Jonathan. Today, we're talking about one of our favorite topics, which is the digital thread. So this has been a topic for many years for Razor Leaf. And we're starting to see more progression happening here as these technologies like PLM and AI come together. So we invited a special guest with us today who knows an awful lot about this topic, and we're really happy to have him here. And we welcome Rob McAveney from Aras, he's their Chief Technology Officer. Welcome, Rob.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation today.
Yeah, glad you're here, Rob.
Yeah, so many of you may know Rob in the PLM space as he's been heading up the technology and Aras Innovator with Aras. And our team at Razor Leaf has been really lucky to work with Aras for many, many years of our partnership. We were one of the first partners with Aras many years ago. But Rob's got a lifelong passion of technology, and he's been building software platforms that help solve really hard business problems for industrial companies. And so Rob is the Aras technology visionary and drives design for all the future PLM technology with Aras Innovator, and is also enabling how Aras addresses the digital thread. So who better than to talk about this topic today? So what I didn't know when I read his bio is that he started his career at Boeing and has a real broad understanding of manufacturing and digital engineering. So that made a whole lot of sense.
Indeed.
Well, with that, let's set the stage for the conversation, and I'll hand it over to Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks, Julianne. I mean, like you said at the beginning, today we want to talk about digital thread. And Rob, you're the perfect person to join us to talk about this, right? I mean, Aras has been talking about digital thread for a long time. And even before all of us started using it as a buzzword, I think a lot of concepts in the product, a lot of things that I think you believe about how this technology should work that really support that before we even had that word to use. So let's just dig in there. Let's start with Aras, because I know not everybody listening knows a lot about Aras. So let's talk a bit about what's Aras's philosophy about, managing product data, that sort of thing. And that'll probably get us pretty quickly into, okay, what does that mean to digital thread? So what's the approach there, and why does that matter?
Sure. Yeah. So, Aras has been around for 25 years now. We were founded as a pure play PLM company to go solve these problems a different way. We now have this great word called digital thread, right. But we didn't always have it. We used to have some other words for it. But when we started building our technology platform, we started with some core assumptions. Really, the biggest one is that every company's digital thread, every company's ecosystem is unique. Their products are different. If their products weren't different, they wouldn't have any competitive differentiation. Right? Their processes are different. How they measure their performance, how they get through their design, build, and deliver kinds of processes are different for every company. Right. Their requirements are different in that they have different regulatory environments, different things like sustainability goals. So every company has those kinds of differences. But perhaps more importantly for this topic, every company has a unique IT ecosystem. It is a unique set of tools that come together to help each company build their product most effectively. And so you can't have this one size fits all kind of version of PLM and digital thread. We believe that adaptability is an important part of how to approach this problem.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, Rob. I mean, I know we see it from our side too, right? In consulting and services, you can go to two companies that might be feel almost identical from the outside, right? And just one little detail makes all the difference. And it's like this butterfly effect, like, oh yeah, we're exactly the same, serve the same market, same product offerings, that kind of thing. But we manufacture globally, we manufacture only in one country. Oh, well, suddenly now we're talking about multiple ERPs, different integrate. It cascades, right?
Makes a huge difference, yeah.
Yeah. So your point about adaptability, I think is a good one, which it leads me to another kind of general digital thread question. One of the things that I hear most often from people when we talk about this topic is, okay, so what is a digital thread? They want somebody to define it, right? And I think that's one of the challenges in implementing digital thread is, what is it? And what does it mean to different people? And so give me your take on that. What do you see related to that, the definition of digital thread, and what people want in the market?
Yeah, I mean, what we see and what we talk about most often and get feedback from customers about is this idea of forward and backward traceability across the life cycle of data elements that artifacts that are created as part of the design, manufacture, and service world, right? We need to understand that there's interrelations between these data and have the ability to trace how things are impacted when a change occurs, and so that's maybe not the most formal definition of digital thread. That's kind of the thought process is connectivity of data, but also connectivity of process and connectivity of people. Right, so we need to not only think about the at a low level database kind of level, being able to connect data element A with data element B. We also need to understand how those things are connected. What's the process by which those things get connected initially, and how it evolves over time, and then have the people involved, the owners of data element A and data element B. Those people need to be able to interact and collaborate. And so the digital thread is more than just about data. It's data, process, and people is one of the things we talk about.
I like that, Rob. I mean, we've talked about that, Julianne, right?
Yeah,
a number of times on the podcast.
We've talked a lot about people. Yes.
Yeah.
They're always
right?
the wild card in this, though, right?
Yeah.
This whole space is, it's data, it's process, it's people, it's tools also, right? I mean, the tools help tie it together, which is why we're talking. But it's all of those things, and you can't ignore them. And you really said it well, I think, in describing the digital thread, that it's about connectivity on all of those topics. Because if you just have the data connected, okay, it's a nice data source, but the other pieces are what bring it to life and give it value.
Yeah, 100% agree. And we've seen it over the years that the companies that of course you can have technologies that simply index all your data across the product lifecycle and get a pretty good view of the data that's out there. But having a real understanding of the connectivity between that data is what would be missing in that kind of approach.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to me. The role that PLM plays in this digital thread space, because for some core things, PLM is the digital thread, right? I mean, if you want to connect some engineering specifications, maybe in a change process, you might do both those in PLM and they're already connected and there's richness and that sort of thing. But where I think a lot of people are focused today is if they've got that building block done, if they've got some basics of a digital thread, then they're looking at how do I build it out? And they start to branch across systems and they start to look at other things. And that brings in the point you were, I think, alluding to earlier when you mentioned all the different systems, all the different challenges people have, is now you need all these relationships you've got to manage. That's what the connectivity part is. Let's transition and talk about that for a minute. What do you see there when you look at tackling that problem of, hey, if we're going to help people with digital thread, there's a lot of relationships to manage. What do you see there?
So, I mean, you can think about it broadly, or you can think about it in specifically. I think both are valid, but let me start with the specifics of what make up a digital thread link or relationship between two data elements, and what makes that a good relationship as opposed to a loose relationship.
Right, or weak, right? Because I mean, some
yeah.
of them are you'll have that, and that's sometimes not bad if it's all you've got. But to your point, it's great. Let's talk about that spectrum of what's sort of weak to what's really strong and good. Yeah, that's great.
So if you think about any two elements in the digital thread, choose your two favorite ones. I'll use the example here of a mechanical CAD model and a simulation study. And I think these are, most people can have a pretty good grasp that the mechanical CAD model is authored in one tool. The simulation study is usually created in another tool. Sometimes they have tight connectivity, but often they don't. Right. And so if we look at a CAD model and a simulation study, the least mature kind of link, or the least useful, in my view, kind of link between them is simply like a URL. Right. If I have if on my simulation study, I have a URL that points to the CAD model that was its source, the simulation study, of course, anybody in the simulation system is going to know that this means that this was the source CAD model for that study. But what about bidirectionality? Does the author of the CAD model know that CAD model was used in a simulation? Can we do a where used on that link? If not, it's probably not a very mature link.
Right. And to your point, like the weakness there is, okay, somebody's going about their business in engineering, making a change, not realizing we need to revalidate whatever test was done with that simulation study. So that's the weakness, right? Is it doesn't give us robust processes. It doesn't help us fully in the way that it could.
Exactly. And that brings me to another characteristic of that linkage, semantics. So it could just as easily be that the CAD model was actually the results of a simulation study as opposed to the input to a simulation study. How do you know the difference between those two kinds of links? Right? How do you understand? If you think of even a part-to-part link, does that mean they're alternate parts? Does that mean they're one is the assembly, the other is the child part? There's all sorts of things that get into the semantics of the link that we often overlook because we have this maybe overly simplistic view of how data and systems interact.
I love that example, Rob. That one was fantastic, right? It's one that I've used many times. We talk about integration a lot. Obviously, we do a lot of integration work, but that bill of material one is perfect. There are so many links between bill of material components. Is it parent-child? Is it alternate part? Is it substitute? Is it context specific? What is it about it? And I think you're hitting at a really key point here. And I'm probably stealing your thunder by saying this, but sometimes we're limited by the technology in what we think we can do and what we should do in building out a digital thread.
Yeah, absolutely. If I just kind of finish up on what makes for a strong link, there's a few other things, and then we can kind of get into the systems. But
sorry to take you off topic. No.
Don't do that.
So just a couple other things. So do we track history of the link? Who created the link and why? Right, and do we have an audit trail of how that link came into existence and possibly how it was deleted, maybe at some point during the product lifecycle? Do we have the opportunity to invoke behaviors based on what happens on one side or the other side of the link? Right, if we get a new version of the CAD model, does that automatically create a new version? Does it automatically trigger something that would tell the simulation engineer to go do something?
Yeah, that is real richness of links, right? Is when it prompts activity, it prompts process, something to happen.
Exactly. And that really can take a couple forms. It can just simply be a notification for the person that's responsible for the simulation in this example, or it can be richer to have more of an event model that you can actually run business logic based on the what happened to that link. And so to me, the ability to leverage the digital thread depends heavily on how mature this is. I think we've all experienced a situation where we sort of know that two pieces of data are related, but we don't know enough about it to really do a proper impact analysis. And so you get into these situations where you end up scrapping parts. You have poor quality because things don't. You missed something in the thread, and parts don't fit well together or don't work well together somehow, and you just end up incurring additional cost. You end up having quality. You end up having customer reputation issues because you don't have that richness of linkage between the data. If you take that the more simplistic approach to digital thread.
Well, you really just said it, right? When people ask about the value of digital thread, that's it. It's the value is in helping you avoid bad decisions through a lack of information, because the digital thread is the strength of that digital thread is providing you the quality of that information. And that's what you need, right? To make good decisions.
Absolutely agree.
I mean, so let's stay with that point about the quality of links and the maturity of links and that kind of thing, because that really sort of dictates the quality of the outcomes you have in using your digital thread. But let's move over to that for a minute. Back to that question I get all the time. Like, well, so what are people doing with digital thread? I know I need one, right? And they get that point about it's got value to me, but how? What are they doing with it, right? That sort of thing. So let's talk about that. People struggle with use cases. What do you see for digital thread use cases, and how are you guys approaching that? What is your take on helping people find those, other than sharing examples with them, but helping them find them and make them real in their work?
Sure. So I think you have to think about not only the people that are involved in building the digital thread, but you have to think about the people who would consume the information that is contained within the digital thread, and how useful that is to people across the product lifecycle, and across really the supply chain and the ecosystem or environment in which you operate. And so the way Aras thinks about the digital thread, it begins kind of at the inception of product development, right? Way up front with product marketing, product management, folks that are defining how my product is going to go to market. That's going to drive requirements. It's going to drive systems models, which will then lead into the design and subsequent manufacture, delivery and maintenance, and eventually retirement of a product. And so if you think about the product lifecycle broadly, you can imagine that there are probably thousands of people that will touch the digital thread over that time span. And so, if you think about it that way, it seems kind of ridiculous to expect that broad an audience to have the expertise or the initiative to go look at or to utilize a full user interface that is designed for building the digital thread as opposed to consuming the digital thread, or a UI that is kind of monolithic that has all this stuff in it, doesn't necessarily work for everybody.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, right? I mean, it's the same thing as I get in my car every day and use it, but I don't always go look under the hood and think about all the systems that are running and what's doing what. It's like, no, I just get in and use it, right? To your point, that's what a lot of people are looking for.
And a lot of people are also looking for not accessing the system directly, but to access the data, right? To perform analytics and other things for dashboards and reporting. They don't necessarily want or need access to the entirety of the digital thread, and they don't necessarily need to understand the intricacies of the interrelationships between the data. They just need to be able to analyze it in a way that makes sense for their use case. Right. And so the way we see it is there's this gigantic digital thread that contains a bunch of stuff, but also a varied set of audiences that need this size and shape of data for this part of the digital thread, and this size and shape of data for a different part of the digital thread, et cetera. Okay. And so to us, it's about exposing the right set of data, the right set of processes, the right collaboration environment for those people that are performing those use cases.
It's almost like federating the pieces of the digital thread that people need to access or use or contribute to, that sort of thing. But in the back end, making sure you're kind of maintaining the full thing.
Exactly. And so let's let the experts do their thing in terms of all the fine details of linking up those that CAD model with its simulation, and all the steps and inputs and outputs of the simulation. The rest of the organization doesn't care much about your results file. They really only want the visualization of that results file, right? So let's allow people to look at that without having to crawl through all the details.
Right. Or, I'll take your example a little further, right? So you're a manufacturing engineer operating in a change process. Maybe you'd like to know that simulation happened, that study happened. But again, you don't want the gory details. You want that visualization. Did it happen? Go, no go. Okay, good. I'm good. Let's keep moving. But if you hadn't had the information, you might stop the process, ask the question, need to go look for the data. So I get what you're saying, that use cases, think about people from that consumption perspective, and it'll lead you in a lot of directions to consider what you need.
Exactly. And, consider what kinds of user interfaces and experiences that those consumers of the data would need in order to effectively do their job.
That's an interesting point, right? Thinking about it from not thinking about it from their perspective just for the use case, but also remembering there are people behind it. You don't want to deliver them that full PLM interface of, hey, good luck, here's the haystack, find the needle.
Yep.
Yeah.
But giving them something specific.
Yeah, there's been so many time studies about, where people lose time just trying to find information. So just having the right information, in the right format, in the right, right system will really make a huge difference.
And I think you guys do something on that. Would you mind talking about that for a second, Rob? Like what you guys do in that area to try and address that need of pinpoint for people?
Yeah, so we use a technique called low-code API management that basically allows companies to create an API or a data feed that exposes exactly the size and shape of data that is required for a specific use case. So this kind of puts a layer on top of the digital thread, or a projection on top of the digital thread to allow for specific data to get through for a specific use case. So that specific use case could be a connector to a downstream system like ERP or MES. It could be a mobile app for my field service technicians to be able to find the documentation they need. It could be exposing specific data for analytics in a particular part of the manufacturing process, for example. So it does two things. It allows for pinpointing from a data security perspective, pinpointing exactly what's being exposed for exactly which use cases, and then on the back end, the custodians of the digital thread, those that are responsible for that data, now have a very clear understanding of exactly what data is being exposed for exactly which purpose, without holding up those other functions, those other people, from being able to do their job in the way that's most effective for them.
That makes sense. And thank you for sort of highlighting that. I thought that was an interesting aspect that we should bring to the audience about an approach here, right? Related to, you got this big digital thread thing to solve. How do you make it bite-sized? How do you make it manageable? And I get it. That technique makes sense.
Yeah, we're excited about it. And I think this is the direction of the industry, is to move towards this more federated viewpoint of that digital thread.
Well, and no doubt, right? When you think about what is in your digital thread or should be in your digital thread, you can't help but recognize that it's federated by nature, because there's not one system that does everything. But speaking of one system that does everything, we would be remiss to not somehow bring up AI in a podcast at this point. But this one's actually a natural fit, though, because I have heard this question a lot lately as, AI shows up on the scene. Do we really need to build out a digital thread, or aren't we going to be able to, in a year, throw AI at all of our messy engineering data sets and product data sets across systems and have it just build one out for us? Like, do we really need to do the work here? What's your take on that, Rob?
Yeah, let's use magic.
Yeah, I love magic. Magic's great.
I think it's I got this question a few weeks ago, related to completely outside of PLM. I heard a statement that somebody said, that in the future something like Salesforce will not be required. If I wanted a list of my current customers, I could set AI loose on email threads and documents and contracts and all sorts of data, and it would come up with a list of customers. And my first thought was, wait, am I going to get the same answer tomorrow? How do I know it's the right answer? Right. I just want a list of my customers. How could I depend on AI for something so basic as that? And so
Exactly.
the way we express it, that is that AI doesn't excuse you from building a digital thread. AI can help you build a digital thread, and AI can be used to leverage the data that's in that digital thread. But it's important that, just like it's important, I know that I have 117 customers, or way more than that in Aras' case. But if my customer list is 117, and I'm adding one tomorrow, that isn't because AI found an email. Right. It's because I have an authoritative source of truth that says that a customer is added. And so I think that the same thing applies here. You can't scrape your CAD tools to get to a definitive bill of material, because we all know there are elements in the bill of material that aren't modeled in CAD. Right. So you can't just scrape your data to come up with the definitive BOM. Of course, AI can help you to build that definitive BOM by suggesting things. But at the end of the day, a human will need to sign off and saying, this is my bill of materials. It's made up of elements from mechanical, electronic, software, and consumables that are necessary for manufacturing. It's a human that has to sign off on that thing. And that's really how you build that definitive source of truth.
Yeah, that reminds me, it's a similar takeaway when you and I talked with Josh and Guy Bursell and Rick Razor about AI and PLM, right? That AI is going to do a lot of great things, and agentic AI is going to be a big deal. But that's the point exactly, agentic AI, things that can help the humans make the decisions and do things. And so maybe AI will be able to help us build a digital thread when we've got really messy data sets. But at the end of the day, a human's still going to have to look at it and decide, is that authoritative? Is that a good source of data that I trust and I want to trust moving forward? So good. I like what you said, though. AI is not going to excuse us from building a digital thread.
Yeah, it's almost like it's the lazy way of trying to get there. You really can't depend on AI 100% right now. So it's not going to happen.
Or really for the foreseeable future. And I don't mean to by any stretch sound like AI isn't evolving quickly and isn't becoming better and better every day. It is. But I think we all need to remember that the products that we build are used by humans. These products need to be safe.
Yes.
We cannot just delegate the authority for our responsibility of making products that are high quality and compliant with regulations and safe. We can't delegate that responsibility to AI for the foreseeable future. We have to have checkpoints along the way. And it's really, I encourage everyone to consider, it's really no different than what we've been doing for the past 50 years. We have these things called verification methods. Right. We have checks and balances along the way to account for a human mistake, or in this case, it could be an AI mistake that might lead to some safety of life issue or some quality issue that would later need to be addressed. Don't think of it as AI is just going to take over and we just check it at the end. There are verification checkpoints along the way to make sure we're building great products.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy, Rob, right? I mean, engineering in some ways is built on a series of assumptions. but we test those assumptions,
Yes.
right? And we test it every step along the way. And we've developed a process that we feel like gets us the result that we want. And so if we're going to insert AI, we just have to be careful about continuing to check those assumptions. And AI is a big assumption when it gives us results sometimes.
It'll accelerate things. That's the good news. Make us a little bit faster. But
it doesn't excuse us from doing the work.
Darn it.
Well, job security, right? That's good.
There's that. We got to have humans involved somewhere. People are the wild card, but yes.
So, I mean, I think this is probably a good time to wrap up. That AI, of course, is always the cherry on top at the end. You can't end a podcast episode without talking about it these days.
No.
But I think we talked about some really good things today in terms of digital thread, and I really am glad that you came on with us, Rob, to talk about this topic. It's clearly evolving. You guys, you have an evolving approach to it, and you recognize that it means something different to everyone. So we'll all be reacting as we see the new use cases, see the new needs, see the things that people come up with that are novel about how to get the most out of their digital thread. But you also highlighted, I think, the key point. The quality of the thread that you build is going to matter to the outcome. You're not going to get AI to solve that for you. It might help you, but it's not going to solve it for you. You've got to work on the quality of that thread, quality of those links, the maturity of those links, that topic that you talked about there in the middle. And I think the other thing that people should take away that I heard out of this is, Aris's philosophy at the beginning you mentioned is flexible, it's adaptable. And that applies in this case, and it's important in this case because as we're all figuring out what these use cases are, you need to be able to adapt and change. And I think the other key point I want to drag in is that Aris's view is that every business is unique. That to me fits really well with the digital thread problem because every digital thread conversation that I have is unique where people are like, well, I don't know what I need out of it. And if you dig in a little deeper, it's usually, well, what problems are you trying to solve today? And it's always something different than even their closest competitor. So that part about really, it's unique, treat it as unique, and bring a tool set and bring an approach that understands that I think all is very important. So that's what I heard today. Julianne, did I miss something in terms of kind of summarizing what we talked about and what Rob brought to us?
No, I mean, I think you really covered it. And I think that, Rob really highlighted the need to really think about what information needs to be consumed in the process of your design and engineering processes, because I think that a lot of people really get hung up on, we see it all the time, and when we hear it, certainly it shows. It's like, okay, I need to build a digital thread, but they don't know really where to start. And so it's just really about figuring out what information is really important to consume from the user's point of view, from the full process, and then, trying to build from there and, prioritize those needs. What
did we miss, Rob?
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, Julianne, but what did we miss?
I'm not sure we talked about it too much during the conversation, but I did want to get one more point in that it's important for companies to understand that not only is their company unique, their company is evolving. Right, with the adoption of AI technologies, with the changes in the regulatory environments, manufacturing seems to be possibly moving to different places. You're never going to be able to stand still, and so your digital thread today is going to look a little bit different than your digital thread tomorrow, and you need to account for that when you're starting to build out these concepts within your company. You have to assume that over time your digital thread is going to become bigger, probably more granular, and is going to require flexibility in systems, in people, and in process.
It would be challenging and take you a couple of years to build it if it was standing still, but it's moving. Don't forget it's moving.
It's always moving.
Exactly.
That's a really good point.
Exactly.
Well, this was a great conversation. I really appreciate your time today, Rob. Thank you.
It's been a great conversation. Appreciate the invite to be on, and it's always a pleasure talking to you folks.
Yeah. Good having you, Rob.
Yes. All right. So as always, I'm sure we're going to have more opportunities later in the year to cover this topic, and we'd like to love to leave the door open for you to come back and join us on another topic around PLM or in digital thread and some of the progressions that we continue to see, because you said it's all moving very, very quickly. So there's nothing that's going to stand still here. To our audience, we welcome your questions. If you have any questions for Rob or you want to talk a little bit more about digital thread, we welcome that. Please make a comment on our post or send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, we will conclude our episode today. And thank you for being here. And until next time, stay sharp.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for being here and listening to this episode of Stay Sharp in Digital Engineering with Razorleaf. If you like this podcast, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform, or check us out on YouTube. If you have any questions, just leave us a comment or send us an email to podcast@razorleaf.com. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay sharp.